Hi guys, my name is Chris Taylor. I am a part of the Woodworkers Guild here in West Michigan, and in a couple weeks for our March session, I'm going to walk you through how to make a basic table on SketchUp. In addition, more importantly than making a table, I'd like to share with you the 5 or so major hangups that prevented me from actually using SketchUp, and hopefully by sharing those things or things that I work through, it will make you more likely to use it and take your woodworking to the next level. So to do that today, I've got to give you a little bit of homework to work on before we actually start with our step-by-step table making session coming up in March. 1, I want you to download SketchUp. 2, I want you to practice starting it up. 3, I want you to figure out how to make a rectangle. 4, I want you to, once you've made that rectangle, I want you to practice making it into a 3-dimensional object. And then I'm going to have a couple examples that I want you to work through. So that way, when we start our session in March, you're going to have a basic familiarity with how to move the camera around a little bit, how to make basic shapes. So that way you can get started and work with me step by step as we go. The first thing you're going to want to do is on this YouTube video, down in the description, you are going to see a link that I put for downloading SketchUp. And once you go to that link, it's going to take you to a place where if you haven't created a Trimble account, it's going to make you do that. And Trimble owns SketchUp. Google used to own it, but they sold it. I want you to download SketchUp Make 2017. I'm not going to talk to you guys about why I want you to use this. Just know that if you're going to get started, this is the one that you want. It's got most of the functionality of 20 and 21, but it doesn't require an internet connection. You can download it right to your desktop. So go ahead, download that, and then install it once you do. And once you do that, you're going to find the icon on your desktop that looks something like that, like a little square. When you come in, and today, like I said, we're just going to practice making rectangles, making boxes, and then moving the camera around, and that's really it. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when I start up. You're going to see all this business here. When you start, it might ask you to choose which unit of measurement you want to use. I'm just for today using inches, even though I actually use centimeters and meters. But oh, I know, it's so taboo here, right? So I click on that, and I start using SketchUp. And it will pull me to this screen. And right away, people are just kind of like, whoa, what do I do? I've got all these things. What you're seeing here, close this so you can see better, is that I've got a 3-dimensional kind of deal here. And I'm zooming out with my mouse button. If you guys are using a laptop with a pad, I'd recommend getting a mouse if you plan on getting serious with SketchUp. It makes things 1,000 times easier. I've got my mouse wheel here that I'm using to zoom in and zoom out. It just makes things way more convenient. If you want to zoom out manually, you can do that right there with the magnifying glass. But what I've got here is I've got 3 different colors. And what these are the planes in a 3-dimensional object. And I'm not the expert at explaining like what the names are of this and stuff like that, but I just want to show you how they work in SketchUp. So I've got a green horizontal plane that's going out into the distance. I've got a red horizontal plane. If you think of this as like a patch of grass, like this is kind of like a square here. And then you've got the blue, which means you're up and down or you're vertical. So for you, if you're making a rectangle first, you're going to hit R for rectangle on the keyboard. And guys, I encourage you strongly to get used to using keyboard shortcuts. It will save you so much time instead of having to go up here and going, okay, here's the box tool, shapes tool, find rectangle. It's going to increase your workflow 1,000 times. I keep a little sticky note, and I write out all the little shortcuts that I use most commonly. I stick them right to my screen until I've committed them to memory. And I can encourage you guys to do that today and in our session when we meet in a couple weeks here. So I hit R for rectangle, and you see it pulled up this little guy here. And I always start every single document or every single build right in this axis here. What this does, it makes sure that that rectangle sits on the ground. If you're thinking of the ground as this and this. Otherwise, if you start drawing it up here, it's gonna actually like, okay, I did it wrong. I'm just so good, I did it right. Um, if I'm drawing a rectangle way up here, that's actually not going to put me in the right spot. So I want to start that right there. I hit R for rectangle, I find that little origin point, and I hold my mouse and I drag it out. Now what you're noticing is that I'm creating the box. And if you look in the lower right hand corner here, you see dimensions. It's giving me approximate values of what I want. You don't have to get the box perfect, which for me was one of the big hangups when I started. So I just want to make a box 2 foot by 2 foot. So I drag it, let it go. Now that's not permanent. I have a moment where I can change the dimensions down here, which I do. I don't waste time getting it perfect. So what I'll do is I don't even have to click that. I just go on my number pad and I'll write 24, comma, 24. So my length times my width. I hit enter and boom, it changes it down to where I need to go. I'm also using the O key, which is the orbit tool, and that lets me rotate. If I'm really tricky, I'll hold shift while I orbit and I can actually move it around. So that's just one less button I have to put, one less button I have to push. So I'm orbiting and I'm holding shift and I'm grabbing it back and forth. So far we've got a couple shortcuts. We got R for rectangle, we got O for orbit. Now I've got my rectangle. Then I hit spacebar. That's another shortcut you want to use. Spacebar is the select tool. So, and now that I've got this object, I can select the sides. Hopefully you guys can see that. I can select the sides. Right now, I don't want to mess with the sides. I'm just trying to make this 2 foot by 2 foot rectangle into a box that's 2 feet tall. We're moving on to the push-pull tool. So I've hit select or spacebar to make sure that I'm selecting. And you got to be careful where you select it. I want to select just that top pane. And I want to use the push-pull tool. So P for push-pull, and it will change to that icon. And I click and I drag it up. I can pull it to whatever distance I want. If you see in the bottom right-hand corner, it's changing the distance as I go up and down. I'm not worried about that. I rarely use that by just pulling. And I'm going to let go. I'm going to hit 24 again to be 24 inches. If you guys want to, use feet and stuff like that, you can enter in two apostrophe for 2 feet, or you could do inches and back and forth, but I'll let you guys play with that. Now I've got a box that's 2 feet by 2 feet. And great. Now I'm going to go ahead and make another shape just so you guys can practice. And this is the majority of what I want you guys to do today is just make boxes of different dimensions. So R for rectangle. Find that red horizontal line. I want to make something 2 inches wide by 48 inches long. Maybe I'm making a table stretcher. So I make something that's in that rough dimension. Now, if you look in the right-hand corner, you see how it says like 1 inch 45/64 by 31, whatever. I'm looking to see which dimension is the longest, so that way I know which order to put my dimensions in. So I know the first one is smaller, the second one is longer. So I'm going to go 2, comma, 48, 2 inches wide by 48 inches long, hit enter. Now keep in mind, you can only change the dimensions of the objects like right now. If you move on to make something else, you can't go back and do that. Now that I've got my rectangle, what do I push? Spacebar for select. Select the top pane. I push P for push pull. I drag it up. Let's say I want this stretcher to be 4 inches tall. So I just type 4, boom. Let's make one more object and I'll go a little bit faster and then I'll give you guys your assignment. Let's say I'm going to make a table leg. Let's go like a basic 4x4 post. This is a pretty heavy table leg. So I go R for rectangle, 4, comma, 4, enter, space for select, select that top plane or pane, and I drag it up. let's say I want it to be, I don't know, 36 inches. O for orbit, and I can move my mouse wheel back or zoom back out. Now I've got myself a table leg. And now, uh, just as a little teaser, I'm curious if you guys know what the next problem is that people have. Like most people can make the basic shapes that they need, but they have trouble when they start putting them together. And this will just be a little bit of a teaser, but here, I've got this table stretcher, and I want to connect it to my leg. And so I hit M for move, right? I'm just going to move the whole thing and it will be great. I'll connect it. Watch what happens. I start, oh man, what is going, going on here? This is where most people run into problems, but I'm not going to talk about it today. You have to show up for the March presentation to know what's going on. So in a minute, I am going to post some mentions of things that I want you to do. And I want you to do that homework. And I can't wait to see you guys in a couple weeks, and we can make a basic table together. And hopefully you'll be able to take your SketchUp use to the next level. It's good to see you guys. Have a good day.